Who's tilted today? It's your boy No Faces Poker back out in Orange City. I've got pocket 10s under the gun on a straddled pot and one player in between calling. I'm going to raise this 100% of the time. I make it 25. I probably could make it 30 or 35 and still expect to get called by one player. We do get called from both the button and the big blind, so I'm going to be alert here. We see ace 5-5. Now this flop is not necessarily great for me because any 5 or any ace is going to slow play. When it checks to me, I bet 30, about half pot. And, you know, looking back, I should probably just make it 15. We get called from both players, so I really need to slow down here and pump the brakes on the turn. An ace of spades means it's less likely they have an ace. Now, it looked like a distinctive check from the big blind, so me checking behind and then the button checking is totally fine. But then the big blind speaks up. Now, the dealer lets it stand because he didn't see him check, even though both of us did. I mean, maybe the other guy was just watching me. But obviously, I'm not going to call this, right, guys? Like, this is never a bluff, especially from a guy who is much older. It's just not likely an angle. All right, next hand, I have ace jack of hearts in the big blind with a few field limpers. I am definitely going to raise this up. I make it 12. I think looking back, I'd like a little bit bigger, maybe 15, maybe 17. With that many callers or that many limpers, we might get one call. Instead, we get two callers, one on my left and one on the button. King 10-6, 2 clubs. This is a check and evaluate kind of board. I mean, yeah, I do have a lot of kings here, but the player on my left never bluffs. So when he bets 25, I just fold. This is just a give up here. And he does show the 2-pair king 10, easy fold. If you're enjoying the content so far, make sure you're subscribed. I have plans to do much more in the coming year, and I'd love it if you'd leave me a comment and a thumbs up. I have a king queen of heart in the big blind and a bunch of field limpers, so we're gonna raise this, obviously. I make it 17. That's good enough, I guess. We get it 3 ways to the flop, both the button and the small blind, so I'm kind of in middle position now. The small blind checks 8, 7, 5 with 2 clubs. This isn't all that bad for my opening range. I mean, it would favor their calling range a little bit more, right? They could have more sets and 2 pairs than I could. I'd make it 20, and we do get a call from the small blind. Hey, look at that. I hit the over card, the king. I think this is a perfectly good card to double barrel on, but I do decide to check back for a little bit of deception and pot control. We do see the 4 of spades on the river as well, so that does bring in a one-liner to a straight. 6 here is pretty concerning. He slides out a bet of 50, and I snap it off. I snap call and say, hey, I've got a king. He mucks. I should slow down and think about these spots a little bit more, but we are good. A few hands later, we're on the button, and we see an open and a call from the middle position player and a late position player on my right. I have ace king of clubs, a premium, so I'm definitely going to 3-bet here. We make it 25. I think I probably could make it a little bit larger, given that we did have a caller in between. We do get 2 calls, so we are about $70 to the flop 3 ways. And look at that, king, 7, 10, rainbow. I have top pair, top kicker. This is a premium hand. I'm definitely going to be thinking about how to maneuver all the money into the middle. We see both players check to me and flow. This is going to be a C-bet 100% of the time. I make it 25. Again, probably could go a little bit bigger, maybe 30, 35 even, and expect to get 1 caller. We do see both the low jack and the cutoff call, so we're still 3 ways to the turn. 4 of clubs, that's a complete brick given their continuing range. I expect to see some kings and some straight draws. Instead, we see the cutoff jam, donk jam for 50 after the low jack checks to him, so I'm never folding here, right? It's 50 to win 250, right? This is always going to be a call, but I'm thinking, how do I get more money in this pot? I am going to raise it up to 150, hoping to get some action on the side from the low jack, but he does fold, and we are heads up, all in for 245. The river is an 8 of spades. It's a little concerning because some straights come in, but I fast roll my ace king, top pair, top kicker, and he mucks, so we win that one. 245. Thank you. All right, several orbits later, I've been hitting a dry spell, but I finally wake up with a decent hand, queen 9 of hearts on the button. Lots of field limpers today, guys, so we always want to punish the limpers, especially when we're on the button, and we have anything that's even remotely playable, we're going to be raising it up. So I make it 15, and we get 1, 2, 3 callers from the field, so I probably should just raise it bigger, right? 20, 25 or something. We do see 2 hearts and 2 6s, so this is not that bad for my hand, but it's not specifically great. When the player from the low jack donk bets for 25, everybody else has either folded or checked. I don't mind necessarily calling here. He's going to be uncapped, so I can't just blast off and start raising. Like sometimes I might if it was just heads up. We do see a call from the under the gun player as well. And look at that, I pick up my overcard, the queen on the turn. So what does this mean for me specifically? Well, it means I can't fold when he bets 25. That's too small of a bet for me to fold given how big the pot is and given that I might get hearts on the river or potentially pick up another card that helps me. We do see the 8 of clubs, so when it's heads up here, it's a $200 pot. Now, he is uncapped, so he could still have some sixes. A lot of times an ace-4 here would just give up and check and hope that I don't blast him off of his equity. But he does think it over quite a bit, and then he puts in the bet to 75. Now, I haven't seen this player bluff at all, like ever. I've played with him for a few sessions, and I'm not saying he's not capable of bluffing. I've just never seen him bluff. I've never caught him in a bluff. So this is not a situation where I think he's betting 75 into 200 for value with a worse hand, so I don't mind the fold here at all. A few hands later, I am in under the gun, and I have ace-5 of spades. This is going to be an open for me about half the time. With some frequency, I'll open here. Sometimes I'll just fold if the table's really aggressive and there's a lot of 3-betting. I just won't even play this hand out of position. But we do get one call from the big blind when I make a 10. He checks to me. Look at that flop. Queen, jack, 4 with 2 spades. This is a good, c-bet flop for me. I'm going to have a lot of queens and jacks in my range. I do specifically have the spades, and we do pick up the 2 of spades on the turn. So when he checks to me, now I've got the nut flush. What do? I probably should be betting here a small amount. His range is really crippled, especially when the ace of clubs comes on the river and he checks to me again. If I'm going to get any money here, I'm going to have to bet really small. I make it 15 into 36. I do think that's probably too big, but he does put in the call, and we do get paid on our ace high flush. It's only 3 hands later, and we're going to mix it up again. I'm on the button. We see several field limpers, and I've got ace-10 offsuit. So, I like to punish the limpers, especially when I have the button, and we haven't seen much aggression in the field. So I make it 12. We get 2 calls. I probably should be betting a little bit bigger on the button just in general when we see this many people calling after, limping. And we do get 2 checks on a 9-3 deuce rainbow board. This is going to favor those small pocket pairs and the small suited connectors a little bit better than my hand specifically, but they both check to me in flow. I make it 15, totally fine. Both of them call. Now my alarm bells are ringing a little bit more. Hey, they probably do have something. We see a 4 of spades on the turn, so this does bring in the straight 5-6 and ace-5, and we see the old man coffee on my right, donk for 20. I don't mind folding and getting out of the way. Do you guys think I should sell t-shirts or something? I've got that place in my YouTube career where people might be interested in some merch. Anyway, I'm in middle position. I've got double jack, jack, the flapjacks in the low jack. I make it 10. We do see a call from a late position player, from the middle position player, from the early. Everybody's in here, right? It's 4 ways to the flop. 10, 7, 5. This is pretty good. I've got the overpair right. Nobody's really gotten crazy. But my nemesis, Donk Vader, over here in the big blind, decides to lead out again for 22 after the early position. I think that's the small blind after he checked. I do put in the call here. I've got the overpair, right? He sometimes could be doing this with like ace 10, king 10, right? Hoping to, push me out of the pot maybe. We are heads up, and the 7 of hearts comes on the turn. So he checks to me and I check back. I think that's okay, given I want to kind of control the size of the pot. He makes a 25 on the river. I call. He's got pocket kings. He didn't raise pre-flop. I'm like, oh, okay, nice job, So, hey, he got the better of me on that one. All right, I know some of you hate bomb pots, but bear with me. This is a fun one. I have 4-2 of spades. I'm in the low jack, and look at that. We flop the spade flush on the bottom board, and we have a pair of 4s on the top. So I have a little bit of insurance because I'm interacting with both boards. When it checks to me, I make it 25 into about 50 after the rake. That's perfectly reasonable, about half pot. We would expect to see at least one player call. Any random pair is probably going to call for that much. So we're trying to build a pot here at this point. I'm not necessarily trying to win on this street. We do get a call from both the button and under the gun 1. And when the turn on the bottom is jack of clubs, that's pretty safe, right? Only thing it does is improve people to straights, but it doesn't make better flushes. We see a 3 of diamonds up top, so that doesn't really help us out that much. When it checks to me, I make it 75. That's perfectly reasonable. With 2 players left, we expect at least one of them to call, right? A lot of times these bomb pots end up being chopped, 2 ways. And sometimes it's nice if you can actually bet a little bit smaller when you have a stronger hand to kind of pull in that 3rd player and chop their money up. We do get a call from the button, and look at that. The river on the bottom is a 7 of spades, so that's going to bring in a lot of higher spades for me. With the 9 of hearts up top, it is a little bit dicey here, but I do stick it in for less than pot. Jam, I've got 234. The pot was 269. This puts a lot of pressure on my opponent. I could just win, right? He could fold, and we have to listen into what he says here.
Spade moves me up on the bottom. It's frightening.
So yeah, I'm a bit relieved to hear him say that. I really only have to sweat queen, 10, or 9 of spades, right? Because he could scoop if he calls with any of those 3. I don't think he has a 9 of spades, but he could have a queen maybe. But, you know, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a good hand here when he makes that speech. And he does put in the fold. So we end up scooping a pretty decent pot, you know, for a bomb pot. I'd love to take, you know, that money down. It's a full orbit later, and I've got pocket 6s under the gun. I will open as wide as any pocket pair and low suited connectors if the table's playing tight passive. In this case, we do get a call from a late position player and from one of the blinds, so we're 3 ways to the flop. There's a little bit less than $30 in the pot, and look at that flop, Jack 6-4. So we flop middle set. This is definitely a hand that I want to build a big pot with if I can. You know, typically I would be range betting small multi-way. In this case, I bet a little bit bigger than small, right? It's like half pot, and both of them fold, unfortunately, but we do win the small pot. Do me a favor and leave me a comment with your personal favorite hand. I'm trying this trick where I play a fan's favorite hand and see how it goes. We have 10-5 offsuit in the small blind. When everybody limps, I just decide to check the option here and continue. We do see a flop of 10-6-5, so I flop 2 pair. I'm range checking pretty much always from the small blind, especially when there's a ton of players in the field and I haven't really shown any pre-flop aggression. Unfortunately, it does check through. We see a 2 of clubs on the turn, so at this point, I definitely need to start putting some money in the pot. And, you know, I'm obviously going to get called by any 10 here with a high percentage. I'm going to get called by 4-3 a lot. We do see a min click from under the gun to 14, and then a call from the cutoff, who's a relatively tight player. It's too early for me to give up, so I call 2. We see a jack of clubs on the river. I definitely did not boat up, right? So I'm checking. I'm probably just going to fold here. We see a $15 bet from under the gun, and then a call from the cutoff, who's a tight player. This is a pretty easy fold, guys. Just get out of the way when you don't have a very good hand. We see that the cutoff does have the king high flush, so he turned the flush draw and then river the flush, and under the gun had pocket 5, so he checked through multi-way and then decided to min click the turn when I put in a bet. Weird. It's only a few hands later, and I've got queen 10 of clubs in the cutoff with a few field limpers. I elect to make it 10. I probably should bet a little bit more against the limpers. We do get 1 call from under the gun 1. Look at that flop, 9-4-4 with 2 clubs. So this is pretty good for me. I've got 2 overs, and I've got the club flush draw. He bets 15 though. This is Donk Vader. I've battled with him before, and I call. The turn is a jack of hearts. So this brings in a huge combo draw for me. He does check. At this point, I should be thinking about betting, and I am, but I should be betting big because I've got a big combo draw here, and it's unlikely that he has a 4 when he donks and then checks. He would have just continued betting. Instead, I make a 25, which kind of incentivizes him to call with a 9. That's not terrible, but with the ace of spades on the river, I think a lot of times I can represent the ace here. He checks, and I have a decision to make. You know, do I check back with air? I mean, I'm never going to win if I check, right? But I can bet, and I can bet really big because I'm going to have a lot of aces here. I'm going to have some 4s here with some frequency, right? 5-4, ace 4. So I make it almost 2x pot, 150 into 89, and it puts a really tough decision on his part. And, you know, if you think I'm going to win, hit the like button. If you think I'm going to lose, hit it twice. He does put in the call, so I'm never good here. He does have ace 9, so he just got there on the river, and I lose a pretty big pot. It's a few hands later, and I see everybody limp, as is the normal operation here at Orange City. I have king jack offsuit in the small blind. I am going to raise. I should probably be raising a little bit bigger than 12, though, given that I'll be out of position on every street. We do get a call from the cutoff, so we are heads up to the flop. Ace jack 4 with 2 clubs. That's not too bad for me. I've got middle pair, and I can make some running straights and some running clubs. So we make it 15, which is about half pot. And he is a relatively tight passive player, and so when he calls, my alarm bells are ringing a little bit. We do see a queen of spades on the turn, so I think slowing down here is perfectly reasonable. Now he comes out and bets 35 into 51. I haven't seen this guy run a bluff since the Ghost Army operation in World War II, where we faked the Nazis into thinking we were landing in Calais instead of Normandy. And so I think folding here is perfectly reasonable. This guy is just never bluffing. So I get out of the way and we live to fight another day. In this hand, I have ace-3 offsuit on the button. It's probably the only place where it's okay to limp. Maybe the cutoff if the button's really passive. But look at that. We flop 2 pair, ace-8-3. Now, there is a diamond draw on board, and we see the under the gun 1 player open to 9. It's a little bit more than pot, but a lot of times you don't see drawing type hands opening very large, if at all. A lot of times they'll play passively. I do put in the call, and we're heads up to the turn. It's a 6 of spades, so that doesn't help either of us. He bets again for about pot, and now I'm starting to think about I should put together a raise. How big should it be? If I'm targeting the strongest portions of his range here, like ace-queen, ace-jack, maybe a limped ace-king. Sometimes players try to get tricky when they're in early position with strong hands like ace-king, especially if it's suited. I do put in a 3x bet. It's a little bit more than 3x. It's kind of an awkward size, right? Because $51 would be 3x, $60 is slightly more. But as I'm, putting the money in, he starts to talk.
Do I have to call to be on your vlog?
Depends on what happens.
You don't have to answer that. I was just being a smart ass.
I've noticed that sometimes when people start talking to you a little bit in the middle of a hand, it's typically not that strong of a hand. A lot of times, if they have a really strong hand, they're going to remain a little bit on the quieter side. They're hoping not to scare you off with too much table talk, especially if they're not normally a talkative type of player. We do see him fold after thinking it over, and he does fold face up ace-4 offsuit, so I don't blame him for folding here. I put a lot of pressure on this pot, and ace-4 is just not strong enough to call when the board looks like this. It's about 2 orbits later, and I'm going to get an opportunity to get a little bit of revenge on my nemesis, Donk Vader, over there. He opens to 7 in the hijack, and I'm on the small blind with a premium. Ace-king suited. I'm going to 3-bet this 100% of the time. I make it 25, which is a little bit on the smaller size, but I want to incentivize him to call with worse, like king-queen, queen-jack, stuff like that. Look at that. King-high flop, king-6-5, rainbow. I check because it's a 3-bet pot. I'm out of position, and I'm heads up. I want to see what he does. He's going to stab for 30 into 48. That's a little bit on the bigger size, so this could indicate that he did actually hit that king, maybe king-queen. Would be really nice. I can get a lot of value from that, so I put in a call, and we get to the turn, 9 of clubs. Now, if you watch closely, he checks out of turn, so I'm thinking if I check to him, he's just going to check back, and we get to the river with a smaller pot. So now, what do? I think I'm going to bet here, and I'm going to bet 40. I think in retrospect, like looking back on it, it could be a little bit bigger, maybe 60 he would call, maybe 70 he would call if he has king-queen, something like that. But we do put in 40. I think that's okay too. Sometimes, it's hard to tell sometimes exactly what sizing to take. The most important thing is looking at what action follows. And he does put in the call. So I'm not thinking he's got 8-7 here very often because he checked out of turn and then just called. He would probably raise if he had it there. Maybe not. But anyway, we get to the river. We have a board pairing 6. Now they'll get sticky if they have a pair, then they think they've been upgraded to 2 pairs. So I do jam it 142 into just a little bit more than 142, so about a pot size jam, but he does fold, unfortunately. So we win a medium pot. A little while later, we're on the big blind, and when everybody's limping, I've got 10-9 offsuit. It does just totally fine to check here. I don't necessarily want to start blasting with offsuit connectors like this, especially when I'm out of position. But we do get a 10-8-4 flop with 2 hearts. I'm going to start betting here. It's almost always a good idea to put money in when you've got top pair, right? But we do get called 3 other ways. So now, I'm not so sure that my 10's any good here. But we do see the 7 of clubs on the turn, so that does give me an open-ended straight draw to go with my top pair. So I don't necessarily mind betting here, and I'm betting a little bit on the bigger side, 30 into 40. And we do see under the gun 1 call, and then the other player folds out of the way, which gets us heads up. I'm much more comfortable being heads up going to this river. 2 of diamonds, that's a complete brick for probably both of us. So any hearts here is just going to snap fold if I bet. So I check, hoping to induce a bluff. He checks back, and we table our hand. He shows that he did, in fact, have the 9 high flush draw. So we win a decent little pot with kind of crappy cards to start with. Some time passes, as it always does, quickly, and then all of a sudden I have ace-8 offsuit in the big blind, not a premium hand, so there's multiple field limpers. I just checked, but look at that flop, ace-jack-7 with 2 clubs. I have the ace of clubs, so I could hit backdoor clubs as well if I get lucky. I check to evaluate. We do see the button bet, minimum bet $5. So I'm going to check raise here for isolation, hoping to drive out some of the other players and maybe get a heads up. We do see both of the other players fold, and then the button calls. So we are heads up to the turn. 9 of spades. So that brings in the double flush draw, right? I wouldn't expect him to necessarily float with spades here unless he has really strong spades like king, queen of spades. I do bet, and I bet big, 30 into 33, and now I probably should put in an overbet like 45 or 50. He calls pretty quickly, so I'm thinking he might have a draw, he might have a worse hand. Unless he has ace king or ace queen specifically, when the board pairs on the river nines, now I have aces full, aces up, nines, aces and nines with a jack kicker. Now I can bet really big, hoping to drive out like a worse ace, you know, that I would normally chop with, like ace 4, ace 6, something like that. Or, you know, I would expect any jack or any 7 to probably snap fold in this spot. So you might as well go for gold and bet big, right? So I do put the pressure on him. I bet 100 into 91. You know, it's a little bit over pot, but I think probably, you know, I've learned since this recording this stuff that I probably need to bet a lot bigger. Like pot size bets on the river are just not really considered big bets in most people's minds. And so he does finally flick in the call and tables the exact same hand, ace 8 offsuit, and I have ace 8. So we chop that up, and man, kudos to him for playing defense in a tough spot. You know, I think if I had made it 2x, like $200 or like even like 150 or 175, he might have folded. Moving along in the session, it's been probably 1 or 2 orbits since I played a hand. We now have 10-10 in the hijack. The player on my right opens to 12. I should be 3-betting for isolation. Instead, I decide to call for some reason. You know, it's okay to call if you're like the last act or something and you're multi-way trying to flop a set. Hi, I did flop a set, and we did actually get a couple of people who called. So we're like 4 ways here, and I've got the top set, 10-8-4 board. When the opener checks to me, that's a smart check on his part, you know, being out of position multi-way on a small board. It's probably not good for his opening range. I bet, I have to bet. I make it 25 into 41. I probably could go a little bit smaller. Maybe 15 would be fine. I kind of want to get called multi-way in this spot, right? Looking to overbet a lot of turns that don't improve. Now, there's not going to be that many 10x here because I have all the 10s, but I could see Jack 9 and 9-7 calling specifically. We do get one call from under the gun. He checks to me on a blank board, 5 of spades. I should be looking to maybe bet small here, hoping to capitalize on like a Jack 9. Specifically, there's not going to be many 10s here, like I said. Instead, I overbet. I make it 100 into 90. You know, he's just never going to call unless he also has a set like 8s or 4s, but I would expect maybe a raise on the flop in that case. He does fold, and I win a small pot. I included this hand because it's a good example of how I misplayed every street and somehow still end up being okay. I have ace 10 in the big blind. There's basically no action. There's like 4 players who limped, 2 players who limped in the blinds. I flop the nut high flush and I check it when it's checked to me. Who's going to put money in the pot if I don't put money in the pot? It checks through, and the turn is a 3 of spades. So now all of a sudden the guy on my right opens to 7. I'm like, okay, I call. I don't know why I'm calling. I could just raise. I could just make it 21 and he'll probably call. But we do get a call from a late position player, and the so we're 3 ways here to the river, ace of clubs. Nobody's going to have an ace here. I have the ace, right? So what range? All the ranges are messed up here, right? He checks to me. I make it 25 into 24, hoping like just somebody please pay me, right? You know, if I had raised pre-flop, I would have had more money in there. But we do get a call from the Lowjack. I table the flush, and he shows that he turned a set. So I could have gotten a lot more value there on the turn. I don't know what I was thinking, but hey, man, sometimes you play it all wrong and still win a little bit. The next noteworthy hand comes a little bit later in the session. I have ace king hijack, ace king in the hijack. It's offsuit, so I open to 10, and we see our nemesis Donk Vader, who's moved to the other end of the table. He calls in the small blind. 10-8-8. That's going to favor his range a little bit better than mine, but he does check to me, and I go for the pot size bet, 20 into 18. You know, I think I probably should just be betting like 10, right? But he does call, so, you know, his range can still contain all the 8s, can still contain all the 10s. We see a queen of hearts on the turn, so that does give me a gut shot with a jack to a straight, and I still do have 2 overcards, so he donk bets, as we know by this point that he loves to donk bet. You know, so far, I think if we look back, he hasn't really donk bet any time other than when he has a strong hand. Now, he's probably worried about me checking back and realizing my equity on the river. But I do still have 2 overcards to the queen, like I said. He made it at 35, so I'm getting slightly okay odds to call there. It's a little bit not okay, but okay nonetheless. We do see the queen on the river, and he checks. I think it's okay to just table the ace here, guys. He's going to have strong hands a lot of the time, and he does have queen 10, so he turned and rivered a full house and was checking to try to induce me to, you know, blast at him like I did earlier in the session. Sneaky, sneaky. Okay, this is one of the few hands of this session where it was straddled and I get involved. I've got pocket queens. I'm in the small blind and the button has straddled, so this is going to be a bet every time, 100% of the time. I make it 20. We do see Donk Vader call, and then we see the button jam for 58. So this is going to be a mandatory back jam. Like, I just can't let Donk Vader get in there, so I make it all in, and he snap folds. So we are heads up with pocket queens for $115. We're going to flip it here with the button one-time dealer. He shows the king of spades, so it's going to be a bit of a sweat. Now, you know, does he have pocket kings? I don't know. Maybe he's sweating me out. Jack 9-5, that's good for me. 7 of clubs on the turn, and a river, 3 of spades. So that's pretty good unless he has pocket kings specifically, and he does table ace king of spades. We survive. Pocket queens, they hold up one time. Thank you, dealer. All right, so that wraps up this session. I was in for 400, out for 425. Over 5 hours, that was only a net profit of $25, $5 an hour. Hey, they're not all going to be winners, guys, but I feel like I've got in there, I battled well, and I will see you on the next video.